Hello there and welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me this morning. Always a pleasure. It's wet, it's rainy, it's windy, all the wonderful things associated, of course, with the wet season. So you can expect more of this, according to the Met Office, over the course of this month, December and January. A lot more rain as compared to what we experienced in August, September and October. But anyway, let's get into the conversation this morning, focusing on the leadership of the United National Congress as a whole, not just the opposition leader herself, but the executive and preparations for 2025. Now, we're all aware of the news. That already has been exhausted. There have been responses to that, and it's more or less died down. But the questions surrounding the actual leadership within the opposition, that's still very much debatable. I'm joined by Opposition Senator, the Honourable Damian Lyda. He's with us via Zoom. Good morning, Senator. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, my lord. Good morning to you, and good morning to all your listeners. And of course, we're in a very festive season. We are in a very holy season. So I say Shubh Diwali to all of your viewers and listeners here today. And thank you very much for having me on your program once again.
Indeed, Shubh Diwali, and thank you very much for joining me on the program. Well, the opposition leadership, the quality of that leadership, and the ability of the United National Congress to lead Trinidad and Tobago in 2025 and beyond. Those are the questions that the UNC will be asking itself as it heads into the next 1.5 to 2 years. That's when the campaign really begins. So my first question to you this morning is simple. How united is the United National Congress?
Well, I mean, contrary to the distractions put out in the social media world, in the world of social media and so forth, by the PNM, who, realizes that their backs are against the wall, that they're on their way out of government, so they're desperately trying to change the narrative from the failure of the PNM and into some alleged squabbles that might be happening in the UNC. I want to just completely dismiss that from the onset and say that we are an extremely united party. I think you can look throughout the Diwali season, you can see the amount of MPs and senators that have joined the leader throughout different visitations and so on during this season. And not only that, but we're working very hard together, both in the lower house and in the Senate, united, and continue to expose, continue to hold to account a government that is clearly falling apart, that clearly seems to be failing in every aspect of the word failure, through every ministry, everything collapsing today, an economy collapsing, every ministry collapsing, the social society collapsing, education collapsing, health collapsing. We're seeing that happening now. Crime out of control, national security collapsing. These are the real issues of today. And we see a PNM government that is failing at solving any of these issues. On the other hand, you see allegations being said about our party, but as I said, I want to dismiss that as a distraction. I wouldn't even want to get into that. We are a united party. We are a strong party made up of a strong leader with strong members that sit in the lower house and in the Senate. And at the same point in time, beyond the lower house and the Senate, the party is made up of many intellects. The United National Congress has always been a party made up of more intelligent people, educated people, accomplished people. And I mean, I can draw a reference between any minister today versus ministers before, between 2010 and 2015. But to answer your question, we are united, and we are united behind one leader.
Well, you said you've described the opposition leaders as strong. What renders that description? Obviously, there are a lot of questions surrounding the ability of Kamla Persad-Bissessar not only to lead her party, but to lead Trinidad and Tobago as a leader, as a prime minister, whatever the case may be.
Well, look, I always believe the proof is in the pudding. I always believe that you have to look at someone's track record. When you go for an interview in a job, you have to show them your credentials. You have to show them what you've accomplished. What is your education? What experience do you have in working for a company or in the industry? Well, if tomorrow morning Kamla Persad-Bissessar the Honorable Kamala Persaud-Bissessar is asked to be Prime Minister again, we're going to have to ask ourselves, what is the qualifications? What experience does she have? This is a lady that between 2010 and 2015 was the Prime Minister of this country, and was the Prime Minister of a government which was a coalition of a number of parties. She had to hold together a coalition of parties, a coalition of different parties with different ideologies, different motives and goals. And she did so successfully between 2010 and 2015. We saw that in the way in which the economy grew year on year under Kamala Persaud-Bissessar. We saw that where crime was reduced significantly to the lowest point in over a decade under Kamala Persaud-Bissessar. We saw that when we had an education system that was thriving. We saw that when we had unemployment declining. She created more than 50,000 jobs under her stewardship.
Senator,
how can you compare?
Senator, hold on. That sounds all well and good, but even though you're describing these things, bear in mind, we also saw under Kamala Persaud-Bissessar since 2015 multiple election defeats.
Multiple election defeats? Well, look, at the end of the day, look, the PNM has always had a very, very significant ability to come out and create lies to the population. All that has happened, that we have seen happen, is PNM has been able to spin lies. We saw that in Emailgate as one. We saw that when they tried to falsely accuse an attorney general and another lawyer, which has now been struck out in the courts. The PNM has continued to spin lies after lies after lies, which we have seen has resulted in some of the election losses, and much to the detriment of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because we see what we have today. What we have today is a PNM that lied their way into government, and a government that has now failed the people, and people that are sitting down asking themselves, did we do the right thing? So I don't want to worry about election losses as a result of PNM lies. I worry about how did a country run under a Kamala Persaud-Bissessar government versus a Keith Christopher Rowley government. You can fool the people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the times. The PNM has been able to fool the people sometimes, but there will be a 2025 election, and they wouldn't be able to fool all the people all the time. The proof is in the pudding. Kamala Persaud-Bissessar, any day you want to put Kamala Persaud-Bissessar and her then cabinet against Keith Christopher Rowley and his current cabinet, and I can make a draw reference between Kamala Persaud-Bissessar as the leader and every single minister that's fell below her versus any minister today. And we can draw a full comparison about leadership in any ministry that you want. And I can show you leadership versus failure. Well, these are the things we have to look at. You see, let me tell you something, my brother. We have spent so much time as a nation being distracted, wasting time about, who lost what election and whatever the case may be. A country does not prosper based on who lost an election or won an election. A country prospers based on what a government does. Many times a government can win an election and collapse an economy and collapse a country. The fact is, when Kamala Persaud-Bissessar won the election in 2010, what happened to the country between 2010 and 2015, and what has happened to the country in the last 8 years under the stewardship of Keith Christopher Rowley?
Okay, so
that is what
I understand what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. But sure. What about the other issues, therefore, if that be the case, of even trying to get the voting population to come out in its numbers? If I take a look at the local government elections, for example, the big celebration for the UNC/NTA was that they gained 3 council seats and that they got the popular vote. But 70% of the voting population didn't come out. Doesn't that speak to the caliber of politics and politicians on both sides? But we reflect, you're an opposition member of parliament, so on both sides, we're talking about now, doesn't that reflect the quality of leadership and politicians that we have now? People just are not interested.
I think it's unfair to really measure exactly what you're saying based on the local government election. Local government elections have historically drawn low numbers. I think the difference between the amount that came out to vote this time versus the last local government elections was, I think, a couple of percentage points, right?
So it was 5 percentage points.
I think it was less than 5. I think it might have been about 3, actually, 3 point something percent. But a percent here or there, right? But what's most important is to understand this. Which people did not come out? When you looked at what UNC would have garnered in terms of votes in the last local government election, I think it was about 200, just about 200,000 votes. Not in the last one, the local government election before that. We got close. We got just over 190,000 votes within this election. When you looked at the PNM, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was about 160-something thousand votes. They got 130,000 this time around.
Yeah, the UNC got 173,000.
Yeah. So when we look, if you have to look at the UNC and the NTA together, because remember, we would have gone into an arrangement with the NTA. If we had not gone into an arrangement with the NTA, we would have fought in certain seats and we would have gotten more votes. You really have to put both the NTA and the UNC together in terms of the numbers of votes in this local government election versus the PNM. So therefore, where did that gap actually happen? The gap actually happened with the PNM. The PNM lost more than 30,000 votes in this last local government election. So this was an indication that whereas the UNC partnership with the NTA held our ground, held our votes, picking up more seats, strengthening corporations, bringing Sangre Grande Regional Corporation from a marginal once upon a time to a stronghold today, and of course putting Toko Grande as a possible winning seat in the next general election. You have a PNM that has lost over 30,000 votes in the local government election. So if you're saying that a population that has lost their taste, well, we've been holding our own while the PNM has been losing significant ground. And we saw that happen in the San Fernando Regional Corporation.
Mr. Senator, is it also an indicator that the opposition under the leadership of Kamla Purcell-Bissessar cannot actually lead in an election, whether they come with a popular vote, whatever the case may be, without a coalition? Because as you said, you have to look at it from the aspect of the UNC, the NTA.
No, well, look, listen. There's nothing wrong with a coalition. You know, there are coalitions throughout the world. We see coalitions throughout the world. When you live in a country that since the day of our independence, the PNM has gerrymandered seats throughout to win elections. That's what they've done. Look at the local government election. Look at the way in which corporations are cut up in this country today. Where you can have 10,000 persons living in an area called Point Fortin, and that has its own corporation, versus over 130,000 people living in Couva Tabakit, and that's one corporation. It is clear the government, the PNM government, from inception, from independence, has gerrymandered seats throughout this country. So it takes a whole country to come together to put a PNM government out of office, a PNM government that has progressively destroyed our economies time and time again, that has emptied our treasury time and time again. It takes a country to come together, and if it takes a coalition, then so be it. So be it.
I'm not saying anything.
We are a party that will always be open to coalitions, because we are a party that understands that there are differences, there are different ideologies throughout the length and breadth of this country. There are different people. We are a diverse party. We are a diverse country. So therefore, we want to be a government that represents all the people, not just some of the people, like this PNM government, and even the some of the people that they claim to represent. They don't even represent them now.
Now, I'm not arguing with you in regards to the power of a coalition. I agree with you, nothing is wrong with a coalition, but it goes in reference with the topic, because a couple more questions to get in with the time that we have, and one of the questions that has always bothered me is that the Prime Minister, bear in mind he is the Prime Minister, has made himself available to the media on multiple occasions. I've put forward a request to interview the opposition leader many a times, no response. Is it that the opposition leader simply cannot speak without the assistance or the help of her senators or her other members of parliament around her? Is it that she cannot speak herself?
Let me tell you something, my friend. True leadership is empowering your team. True leadership is not becoming a dictator or trying to dictate the narrative. True leadership is empowering your team. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, one of her goals, major goals, before she ends her career in politics, is to ensure that she leaves behind a strong and robust team that can run a country at a moment's notice. You do not foster, and I don't want to use that word foster because that's another failure, but you do not foster continuity. You do not create a sense of you do not end your career by leaving a party vacant without the ability to continue on, without the ability to lead. Kamala Persad-Bissessar has empowered her MPs and her senators. She ensures that everyone speaks to the population. Everyone has the ability to speak on any topic at any point in time. We hold press conferences every Wednesday, every Sunday, sometimes on Fridays. When we don't hold press conferences, we have our Monday night reports. And she ensures to allow all MPs, all senators who shadow various ministries. That's the thing, is that in the opposition, we are a government in waiting. And she's ensured that she has put the right persons in the right places to shadow ministries. So that is why you see so many different members of parliament and senators speaking to the population. Kamala Persad-Bissessar does not need to come out every week to say something to the population. She has a qualified team below her, and that's the difference. You see, he has to come out.
Hold on, opposition. Let's go back to my question.
He only has to come out and talk.
Let's go back to my question. I'm asking in particular, not holding press conferences.
Yes.
But the ability, just as how you have made yourself available this morning, just as how government ministers have made themselves for an interview, not only on this platform, but on other platforms. Could the opposition leader do the same? Does she have the ability to sit down and have a conversation one-on-one?
Well, I think she has been she's been placed in the papers every single week. You see Kamala Persad-Bissessar in the papers, so that means she has been communicating with the media. She comes on Monday night reports. She has spoken on countless occasions. In fact, if I am not mistaken, just recently we concluded a budget debate. And the very first matter of business was the opposition leader standing up in front of the nation, addressing the nation with the media on matters of the budget. In fact, just last night we were in Diwali Nagar. The opposition leader makes herself available during. Where is Dr. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister, during Diwali? I seem to not see him in any event. Kamala Persad-Bissessar has been throughout the length and breadth of this country in the last couple of weeks during the Diwali season. And while traversing the different locations of Trinidad during Diwali, there have been members of the media that have been there, that have interviewed her. When she comes to Parliament, she jumps out of her car and members of the media, she walks across the road to the other side road where there are countless protesters. The media interviews her at that stage. Kamala Persad-Bissessar has had many interviews with the media. And now, I'm sorry if you may not have gotten an opportunity to interview Mrs. Persad-Bissessar, and I'll be sure to mention mention that to her. But I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that she does not speak with the media and that she does not sit with interviews. Maybe it hasn't happened with you. I am sorry if it hasn't happened with you.
Oh well, I'm all too sorry as well, because I think it's very fortunate that I'm able to have you this morning, and I'm able to have government MPs as well and ministers as well, and other media stations.
No, and let me tell you something. And you have an excellent program. I love coming on your program because you ask very, very tough questions, and that is what people in the media must do. They must ask tough questions. They must be balanced, and you are very much balanced. I find you to be balanced. You ask tough questions. Doesn't matter if it's PNM or UNC comes on your program. I've seen your program, so I do like your program, and I'm saying to you, it's unfortunate if she has not been on your program. But I can say to you that the opposition leader has been on countless interviews with the media. I mean, and I said we just need to draw a reference from the budget debate recently, where she, from there all the way to Diwali, because remember, we went from an election to a budget debate to Diwali. This has been what has happened in the last few months. She has had countless interviews during the election, after the budget debate. She has had press conferences. She has had interviews. There have been media that have called her on the phone, where she's given responses. She's given out countless. Every single week there's a press release coming out from Kamala Persad-Bissessar. If I challenge you, open the newspaper at any given week in the last 6 months, and you will see a press release coming out from Kamala Persad-Bissessar. And then we take ourselves into Diwali. We have seen Kamala Persad-Bissessar present in person. When all it talks about, oh, she was not well, and oh, she got a stroke, and oh, she cut off toes off her feet. Kamala Persad-Bissessar stood there last night in the Diwali Nagar, stronger than ever, delivered a mammoth speech.
Opposition Senator,
a tremendous speech.
My apologies for having to interrupt and cut you across, but we're out of time. But thank you very much, nevertheless, for your presence this morning. A very interesting conversation indeed, and I look forward to the next.
I thank you very much. I thank you for having me once again. I thank you for allowing me to speak to all of the listeners. And I will pass on the message to my honorable leader that you do want an interview. So because I do think you're a great you're a great member of the media, and I'll pass that on. It's unfortunate that you haven't gotten one, but I will pass on the message for sure. Unfortunate indeed. Thank you very much, sir. Happy Diwali to you and your family. And have a good one. You and your family. Okay. Take care. Yes, it is unfortunate indeed, but I wonder how many of my colleagues in the media have also gotten a one-on-one with the opposition leader as well. I can't recall the last time that happened, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not keeping abreast enough with the news. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. When we return, we get into another conversation, a continuation, that is, of a matter, of an issue that has been affecting many citizens across Trinidad and Tobago, and that is noise pollution. We'll be right back after this.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. coming from an expert.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, Vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law,
and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. My next conversation this morning focuses on multiple sclerosis. It's a term of which you've probably heard before, but we're not necessarily familiar with. Do we know what it is? Do we understand what causes it, the side effects associated with multiple sclerosis? Well, not side effects actually, symptoms rather. Well, this morning to have a conversation about that, I'm joined by the president of the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Gillian Rodolfo, as well as a consultant neurologist, Dr. Sean Mohan. Both my guests are with us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Rodolfo. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Dr. Mohan, thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yes. Let me start with you, Ms. Rodolfo, by asking you about the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago. It's not familiar with me. It's relatively new to my ears. Precisely this organization, this foundation itself, what is its intended aims? The use of the word support already gives some suggestion. But particularly with multiple sclerosis, what is it that the body is trying to achieve in Trinidad and Tobago?
Good morning again. Yes, thank you. So the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago was founded in 2018. We are an NGO. Dr. Daphne Phillips and some other good people founded this foundation. And our goal actually is to provide the necessary services for our members, to raise awareness around multiple sclerosis, engage in effective advocacy to become financially viable, and to develop a governance plan and an advisory committee, and also to establish full-time support for our membership.
Dr. Mohan, again, as I mentioned in my introduction, multiple sclerosis is a term that we would have heard of. It may be familiar to our ears, but we do not necessarily know what it is. Could you please explain to us what multiple sclerosis is?
So multiple sclerosis is a condition where the body's own immune system turns against it and starts attacking the nerves. As a result of that, it results in damage to nerves. It is a condition that there are many powerful treatments for. It has been thought of as rare in the Caribbean population, but actually, when you look at it, it is a fairly common illness. The symptoms of it are many, and it can affect a person's eyes, their balance, the strength in the arms and legs, the ability to feel things in their arms and legs. And it is a quite important neurological condition because, as I said, we do have good treatments for it.
What causes MS, and who can get MS?
So anyone can get MS. In terms of the causes of it, there are many causes. There are genetic factors, there are environmental things, such as exposures to toxins, pollutants. There are viruses that can do it. So there are many, many causes of it, not just one single cause. It affects both men and women, but it can affect women slightly more commonly than men. And it is a lifelong condition.
Well, Mr. Rodolfo, given that it is relatively rare in the Caribbean, as per the explanation, the focus, though, is it on members who face this disease, as Dr. Moon mentioned, a lifelong period? What sort of support is it that they would need when they're facing this disease?
Okay, thank you for the question. We, persons affected with multiple sclerosis in Trinidad and Tobago, we are advocating for a clinic that will be exclusive to for multiple sclerosis patients. The support we need is medication that is on the government formulary that is accessible to us. At the moment, there are medications that are on the formulary, but new medications are available that will help, because not like other medications, what will help one person doesn't help another, and ones that are available here in Trinidad is not, but I'd say some persons have already advanced further in multiple sclerosis and need different medication. So that's one of our challenges and what we are trying to advocate for, to have new and more medications on the government formulary to assist with our members and patients with multiple sclerosis in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, Dr. Moon mentioned that in that regard, good treatments are available, but given your advocacy, Mr. Rodolfo, and that of the organizations, is it becoming increasingly difficult to access such treatments?
Yes, in particular, one drug that is needed for persons. So multiple sclerosis, there are 3 different types of multiple sclerosis. When it starts off with relapsing remitting, it goes to primary progressive and then secondary progressive. May or may not, based on the medications that persons have and access to it. And at the moment, there is only one drug, which is called Ocrevus, that is recommended for persons with primary progressive and secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, that is not available on the government formulary for persons in Trinidad and Tobago. It is available, but it is very expensive, and most insurance companies don't cover the costs. And we are trying to advocate for it to be accessible to us through the government formulary, like the other forms of medication that are available, which we are grateful for, because not all medications or the different types of medication work for the different persons with multiple sclerosis. In saying so, that even though you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and somebody else is, our symptoms, even though they may be similar, they're not the same. It affects each person differently. Very much, yes, different for every person. We actually dub it the snowflake disease, because like snowflakes, each one is different, is similar.
Yes.
Even though similar symptoms, it's different for each person.
Can't take this approach that one size fits all. But Dr. Moon, as Mr. Rodolfo mentioned, the different types of multiple sclerosis, could you kindly educate us, inform us on the various forms of MS?
Sure. So the most common type, as she mentioned, is something called relapsing remitting disease. In that type of multiple sclerosis, a person gets, say, for example, weakness of an arm or a leg, or numbness or pins and needles in their body that last for days or weeks at a time, and eventually the symptoms tend to resolve. People keep having attacks after attack of this, but each of these attacks represents an area of injury to a person's brain. That's why it's important to try and stop the disease, because if you let the disease carry on, eventually the damage builds up and you go into what's called this secondary progressive form, where instead of recovering largely from the episode of weakness, you stay weak, or you stay numb, or you stay with the pins and needles, or your vision completely starts going and you go blind. In the primary progressive illness, unfortunately, when the weakness starts, it only gets worse. So if the numbness starts, it only gets worse. And I know I mentioned that MS was thought to be rare in the Caribbean, but actually recent studies have shown that in the non-white population, MS is just as common as in the white population. So in fact, Trinidad and Tobago, we only have about 150 cases diagnosed, but there should be a lot more people diagnosed with this condition. And I think it's because of the lack of awareness and the good work that Gillian is doing to raise awareness, we can bring more help to more people.
Interesting point in regards to the demographics and whom this disease is affecting. But apart from the awareness and indeed a very good work that Ms. Rodolfo and the organization is doing, so I'm glad that we can have this conversation. But Dr. Mohan, exactly in terms of testing, how is one diagnosed? What are the tests, or what is the test that needs to be conducted for a diagnosis?
Sure. So in terms of testing, you need to find a patient with the right story. So in 9 out of 10 patients, people with recurrent episodes of neurological symptoms. Once you find these patients, you send them for a full battery of blood tests, an MRI scan of their brain and potentially their spine. And together with this, you may also require something called a lumbar puncture. A lumbar puncture is a test where we extract some of the fluid that surrounds the spinal cord and send for testing. Once you have all of these things put together, you find the characteristic lesions in the brain, the characteristics abnormalities in this fluid that points to the diagnosis. So it's a recognized diagnostic criteria, which means that there are recognized things that you must have to be diagnosed with this illness. And once you tick all the boxes, you are given the diagnosis.
Mr. Rodolfo?
Yes?
Coming back to what Dr. Mohan would have mentioned in regards to the statistics, at least here in Trinidad and Tobago, how there are roughly 150 individuals who are diagnosed, but the possibility exists that there's much more than that. Could you speak to me in regards to the testing that is available here in TNT, or rather the access to testing, if an individual is showing signs or symptoms associated with MS, and how easily available that is to them?
I smiled, I laughed, because of my own personal experiences, I would say, starting in 2013. Having different types of symptoms. I was actually misdiagnosed twice, and eventually I was diagnosed, I would say, by a flukes, literally, and my journey began there. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. I got a steroid infusion for a week. I recovered, and then I was introduced to the clinic in Sandy Grande, where I now attend on every 3 months. I get my I get a prescription, I get my medication. However, it is recommended that persons with multiple sclerosis do MRIs at least once a year, to monitor their progression, to monitor how the medication is working, monitor the symptoms that they would have shared with their doctor at the time of the visit, stuff like that. my experience within the last 6 months to have an MRI done in Trinidad and Tobago, for lack of a better word, I would say horrible, horrid. It was not nice. A sick person having to have had the experience that I went through, it wasn't a nice one, where I got the prescription to go to have the MRI done, went to Mount Hope. I was told Mount Hope facility is down. You need to be transferred to Cuba facility. Need to do a blood test. Okay, go to have the MRI done. You need to have a blood test done. This process took more than a month. After which I was told that I need to do the blood test the day before, that the hospital doesn't have the creatine, I don't remember the correct terminology for the word, to have the test done, and I need to do it privately. I was like, what? This is going on for more than a month, and you all tell me this the day before? Okay, no transport. If you have to take a taxi, it's terrible. Anyway, I had the MRI done at Cuba. That was smooth, it was fine. And it took me 2.5 months to get the results. Why? They have a backlog. They're taking patients from Port of Spain, they're taking patients from Sandy Grande, they're taking patients from Mount Hope, and I need to wait 2.5 months to get my results.
That was in 2013. We're in 2023. What an experience that you would have faced. But 10 years later, those whom you would meet and those whom the organization would extend support to, is this a commonality? Your own personal story, is it still a commonality in 2023?
So what I explained to you happened 3 months ago. That experience with the MRI.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, 2 months ago, that experience with the MRI. Yes, sir. Terrible. Really, really terrible. Horrid, even. Yes. So it got worse. And if you don't have health insurance, so and to do and pay for your test result, your tests and anything like that, it's no good, no good.
Naturally, Dr. Moore, my next question would be, does MS shorten life expectancy, or worse, is it fatal?
So directly, MS is not fatal, but obviously if someone gets paralyzed because of a brain condition or spinal condition, they are more likely to develop things like chest infections, blood clots, and these sorts of things will be the thing that unfortunately results in a person's death. So MS, while it robs you of your life, it robs you of your ability to walk, to speak, to see, it robs you of your ability to have a good balance or even swallow. It itself is not directly fatal. It is the consequences of these things that are fatal. And it does rob young people, because MS is a disease of young people. It can the youngest patient I've diagnosed with MS was 17 years old, and it can extend. People over 60 can get the disease as well, but it affects working age people, and it robs them of their life. So to answer your question, not directly fatal, but it causes a significant burden, a significant detriment to their life.
Dr. Moore, my final question to you, though, is that to the audience watching this morning, what are some of the signs that they should be aware of, that they shouldn't ignore, and that should let them realize, I need to get tested?
Sure. So if anyone develops any loss of vision, any discoloration of their vision, weakness of an arm or a leg, sensory disturbance, which by that I mean numbness, or the feeling that your body is being hugged tightly by something, your balance is starting to go, you're having trouble with your bladder or your bowel, and these symptoms last for more than a day, then it needs to be seen by the patient needs to be seen by a neurologist for an examination to exclude this. As I said, this condition is very much the disease of young working age populations, working age people. So if it happens to a young person, definitely be seen.
And Mr. Rodolfo, as we conclude this morning's conversation, and thank you very much for joining us, should individuals wish to contact your organization, whether it be to seek support or to give support, how can they contact the organization?
Sure. Our email address is tt.mssf@gmail.com, or they can contact me. So when they contact via email, I would respond, or someone will respond to them and give telephone information, because we actually have a chat group, a MSFF support chat group that they can be added to receive support, as well as on the 27th of November, we are having our first series, I would say online series with Dr. Mohan, and it's called Ask an MS Expert TT, and this will be on the 27th of November at 6 p.m. And all are invited, persons who you may know who has multiple sclerosis, a caregiver, a supporter. We invite you to come to listen, to have questions answered concerning multiple sclerosis that persons are afraid or shy to ask their doctor when they go to clinic. And sometimes even in the clinic, the time is so short that to ask the questions that they need to ask, seldom are answered. So they can contact us, join us on the Zoom meeting, Ask an MS Expert TT. And again, I would repeat the email address, tt.mssf@gmail.com. And we will respond and share more information.
Well, if you have more questions or you need further understanding 2 Mondays from now, you can certainly join them for that Zoom call. So I encourage all those to pop an email at tt.mssf@gmail.com. Mr. Rodolfo, to yourself and to all those who are part of your foundation, thank you very much for the work that you all are doing, and thank you for making the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you for having us, and on behalf of the MSFF TT, thank you again. Have a good day.
Dr. Mohan, for the generosity in sharing your time with us and to educate us, and even 2 Mondays from now, your contribution to that conversation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Do have a good day. Ms. Gillian Rodolfo, President of the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago, and Dr. Sean Mohan, Consultant and Neurologist, joining me this morning on AM Prime. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Minister Bacchus emphasizes holistic approach to cybersecurity. 23 schools vie for the Junior Parang title. Regionally, U.S. National Hurricane Center monitors dual weather disturbances in the Caribbean, and internationally, Qatar seeking Israel-Hamas deal to free 50 hostages and 3-day truce. Now for the details. Minister of Digital Transformation Hassel Bacchus says that dealing with cybersecurity takes a very holistic approach. He maintains that cyber attacks will happen to organizations no matter what type of security is in place. That said, however, He stated that it is necessary to ensure that things are put in place to ensure companies are prepared for attacks. Minister Bacchus stated in addition to trying to prepare for attacks, there must also be a focus on preventing such attacks. The next generation of parenteros are getting ready for this weekend as they put the final touches to their presentations for the National Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago's Junior Parang Festival. This event takes place on November 18th and 19th at the St. Francois Girls College, Belmont from 9 a.m. Themed Mi Paranda. The competition will see 23 primary schools and 16 secondary schools vying for top honors. Last year's winners, Morva Anglican Primary School and St. Joseph Convent. St. Joseph are back in the lineup to see if they can take home the trophy once again. Regionally, 2 late-season disturbances have popped in the Atlantic Basin, according to the National Hurricane Center. One of the disturbances is located over the southwestern Caribbean Sea. Meteorologists said the large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms could become a tropical depression by this weekend as it moves northward across the western and central Caribbean. Internationally, Qatari mediators on Wednesday sought to negotiate a deal between Hamas and Israel that included the release of around 50 civilian hostages from Gaza in exchange for a 3-day ceasefire. An official brief on the negotiation told Reuters. The officials said the deal, under discussion and coordinated with the U.S., would also see Israel release some Palestinian women and children from Israeli jails and increase the amount of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Well, that's it. News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
My name is Carl Media. I am the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making the time to be with us this morning. My next conversation stems from comments made by the Honourable Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. He says he's looking forward to Trinidad and Tobago becoming a cashless society, stating that such will have a tremendous effect on the country, including reducing crime. He's quoted as saying, "I look forward to Trinidad and Tobago moving towards being a cashless society. That would have a tremendous effect on our productivity, increasing our security, reduce criminal conduct, and put us alongside the best in the world." But my questions are, a cashless society, is this a possibility or an inevitability? And what are some of the important factors that we have to consider when even speaking about a cashless society? I can't answer all those questions, so I'm joined by my guest this morning, information technology consultant, Ms. Camille Pagey, and she's with me in studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me this morning. I mentioned you're an information technology consultant, but precisely what does that entail?
Well, information technology is a very broad field, so let me first put some parameters around what I do. Since about the year 2000, and in fact a few years before that, when IT was hardly a thing, I've been involved in software development. Since around the year 2000, I've also been involved in software development as it pertains to payments. So I do have some familiarity with financial systems, with the systems which support credit and debit transactions. And throughout the last 25 years, it's been my role to understand the needs of users, understand what business is trying to achieve by using information technology as a tool, and help both users and business and those who are trying to implement the actual technical systems to achieve something that meets the needs and the goals that each party had. That's my core business.
So given that you have this wealth of experience and your mind will wrap around this idea of a cashless society far better than mine possibly would, what are some of the things that first come to your mind when you hear the term cashless society?
Well, I read the comment as well in the paper, and the first thing I want to tell you is you're not alone. It is not because I'm an expert I will have a very different reaction. I think that it is normal, and when I read the comment, my first belief was this will confuse many people. It even confuses me. You put together two terms that I understand. I understand the term cashless. It means conducting a transaction where one side delivers some value, some good or some service. The other side rewards with a currency. That's a transaction, and they've rewarded them somehow without handling physical paper money. That's cashless. And then you say society. But a society is a very, very large, broad, many-faceted term. I can understand a cashless transaction, but I think that there's a lot to discuss in trying to put some shape, trying to put some details around what may be meant by the entire society going cashless.
So the Prime Minister mentioned important factors, such as reducing crime, helping with productivity, and more importantly, putting us alongside the best in the world. But are we prepared for that, given that he's encouraging investments in technology, but most recently we're seeing that we're not even prepared to utilize the technology we currently have?
Well, again, I think you're not alone in asking that question. The comment that came most recently in the context of handing over, I think it was a batch of tablets like these for the support and development of a homework center, which is a great initiative. I agree with many of the things that the Prime Minister said. I agree that moving towards digital activities, moving towards leveraging technological tools to make what we want to do in society more efficient is absolutely the right direction. And I think if you set as a goal, if you have said as a country, this is our goal, we want to be utilizing these tools for the benefit of everyone in our society to the best degree that we're capable of, I think we can take some comfort from knowing, some comfort, that in a way we are already alongside the best. Because there's a suggestion, there's an implication when you say, use more technology and be the best in the world, that somehow best means maximizing use of technology in every realm of your life. Coming back to the reality that I deal with day to day, which is assisting to bring change, to bring technological change, to bring devices, software, online use, online storage into business situations, I can tell you that it's always a balance. What is best is a function of the situation you are trying to address. So I have one example to just spell this out, which perhaps this will shed some light on what the Prime Minister was trying to say. So I have here a day-to-day product that I think we all recognize. We have a heap of citrus for sale.
I'm sorry, by the way, they may look that color on your screen because of our, of course, technology.
Yes, unspecific citrus. So I have a heap of oranges to sell. I want to sell this heap for $20. Would you like to buy this heap from me?
Yes.
Let's do a cash transaction. Let's do a live on the air cash transaction. I'm going to give you this heap of oranges, and you're going to give me, if you don't mind, my asking price at $20.
Do I really have to? Okay. I'm resting that right there.
Okay, thanks. So you, in the traditional way, you have put down the money on my little table. We've just conducted a cash transaction. So let's look, what was there which is not safe about this transaction? The same action that we just took can have different elements of safety under different conditions. So let's take condition one. This was one person selling to another person. This may be one of only 2 heaps I have to sell today. So my complete total transactions might come to $40 in the day, especially if I'm a householder or I'm a retiree and I happen to have a grapefruit tree or an orange tree, and I've decided I would like to convert my oranges into $20 by the heap, and I'm done at the end of the day, $40. Where are the safety concerns? I would venture to say there's minimal safety concerns. I have met you face to face. You gave me money. It didn't go anywhere else. $20 was not a huge temptation for another party or another person seeing the transaction to come and target and try to intervene. From the government's point of view, it is also a low risk that I have done something illegal. It's a low risk. Why? Because at the end of the day, I converted 8 oranges into $40. Let's take the same transaction, and let's just say that I had 100 heaps or 1,000 heaps to sell, and I conducted this same back and forth with many, many customers throughout the day, and at the end of the day, I have thousands of dollars. Now, the same type of transaction has become a little bit different in terms of safety, as well as the kinds of things the Prime Minister may have on his mind, which affects the wider society. A primary risk of me doing this 100 times and gathering $2,000 at the end of the day in cash is that nothing forces me to tell the government about my earnings, and no one will come back to me or have an easy way of coming back to collect the government's share. Now, the government's share is intended for the benefit of the wider society. The taxes are intended to fund other activities, which will enable me to carry on my life, access health care, drive on safe roads, etc. So there's different aspects of a transaction which can make it a very different risk profile, a very different benefit profile according to where it happens, who's conducting it, how many times, and what is the magnitude of the transaction. So let's come back to what caused us some confusion and concern. My confusion and concern came from the question of degree. To what degree will becoming cashless still deliver more benefits without actually beginning to hinder my right as a citizen to sell my grapefruits or to sell my oranges? Let's come back to the cashless question. Could I have conducted this? Would it be feasible? Would it be logical? Would it be credible to think that if I wanted to sell my 2 heaps of grapefruits or oranges, or if I wanted to, let's say, give an allowance to a child or a family member, make a gift, that I would seek to use a point of sale device? Let's say, a few years in the future, it's easy and it's credible to think that every phone becomes a point of sale. Is it then beneficial to everyone? And I want to throw this back to you as a non-IT person. What's your immediate feeling about that statement?
Well, my immediate reaction to all that you've explained thus far is, especially in regards to the securities, that there are benefits, of course, to cashless society, and overall in regards to taxation, for example, it should make the process a lot more clarified. However, as an entrepreneur, for example, if I have a vegetable or fruit stall or anything of that nature or size, it does not seem feasible to me, it does not seem practical for me to invest in such technology. I'm not sure about my intake and whether or not I'll be able to have such an investment or maintain such an investment.
I think that all of those things that came to your mind naturally off the top of your head, you have hit the nail on the head. And you're not alone. There are experts worldwide looking at the same kind of problems worldwide in development scenarios, in the development and evolution of the financial industry, making the same point, which is that by its nature, a cashless transaction requires overhead. It requires some preparation. Let's just break down the different things. I identified you might need a device. Obviously, it's not going to be a basic phone. It's not going to be a text message only phone. It's going to be a smart device. Smart meaning connecting to the internet. If your device has a certain cost, that's already one overhead. And in many situations, let's be honest, the device itself may have more value than the item you're trying to sell. This can introduce a risk because this now becomes something more desirable if you're concerned about petty crime. That's just the beginning. You have a device, you also need to have internet access. Internet access is not free.
And it's not only is it not free, the connectivity across Trinidad, one will tell you, is not reliable.
It is variable. Let's just say, in fact, Trinidad and Tobago enjoys pretty good coverage. It has seen improving network coverage for decades. I mean, ever since we've been rolling out mobile systems, the standards have improved, and Trinidad and Tobago actually enjoys better broadband speed across a broader percentage of our land area than parts of the larger countries like the United States, Canada, and even England. So, however, you are right in that there is a limit. There's a limit to everything. So immediately one of the limits we're looking at is what if you were trying to conduct transactions in a rural area or in an area where there simply happens to be poor cell phone coverage or gaps. Then there is the cost. The coverage may be there, but coverage is not free for everyone who wants to use it. There's a requirement to pay. Then, in order to be conducting transactions, the value must be going somewhere. It's not going to reside on my phone or my device. It's going to an account in current terms. There is a possibility in the future that a cashless transaction could be supported by an exchange of value from a stored value on a card to a stored value on a device, and then I take that offline device and I can convert it to an account elsewhere. But ultimately, I don't reach the end of the line to touch that value of that money that I was supposed to receive unless I have a bank account.
And I've got to, going back to the example that you're using with the bunch of citrus that you have, I have to sell a minimum amount which is not guaranteed before I can consider what my income is. So I have to make a certain amount of revenue before understanding what my income is, because I have to cover the bill of keeping the device, of maintaining that device. I have to cover the cost of all the taxes or the accounting fees every time a transaction is made. I've got to account for my internet connection, and even more so, all in all, to me, it's just sounding a lot more costly. So whilst there are benefits to cashless society and cashless transactions, I'm thinking immediately we're not prepared for that.
So I believe that you're correct to say that if you took the same model and tried to apply it to all corners of society, correct, not all corners of society are prepared, not even all corners of a business landscape right now, by which I mean small, medium enterprises. There are medium enterprises still not taking advantage of cashless. For those same reasons, it becomes a part of the overhead. So I think that one of the key points that you've just illustrated by breaking down the overheads involved and the complications involved points back to a need for some discussion about what we mean by making such a service or such a method of using services universal. Can it be 100% universal? I think that there are some other reasons why right now it is A, not possible, and B, maybe not entirely desirable. So I'm going to come back to the background steps that are required. We talked about a bank account being fundamental. You cannot do a cashless transaction without bank accounts being involved
and there's
somewhere.
a great percentage of our population which currently are not even banked. They don't have bank accounts. Absolutely correct.
And I don't think we have very exact figures because it's easy to count bank accounts. It's not easy to count people who are not in a system. And it's tempting. I know that it is the nature of a technical discussion for people with the technical skills to limit it to the technical problem and solution and say, okay, well, you have a solution, just get those people into the banking system. Just convert more people into the system so that the system is satisfied. But I believe from experience and from observation, and I think you've had similar observations, that those barriers should not be underestimated. And I'm making a statement there that I'm very confident applies beyond Trinidad and Tobago. This is not a statement about a lack in society. It's not a statement of shortcoming. It's a statement of this is the reality. The reality is that every society will include people who are under the age of 18 and perhaps would not be able to get a merchant account. Right off the bat, you have some limitations there. There are people who are less literate, whether with numbers or with reading. There are huge barriers to getting a bank account, or for that matter, even the preliminary steps to a bank account. Remember, you cannot walk into any financial institution and say, I would like to open an account, and walk away unless you have backup documentation. You need forms of ID. If you are a recent immigrant, you may not have a form of ID accepted by that institution. Then the institution, due to worldwide requirements for anti-money laundering, will insist on some kind of proof that you live in a location where they could find you. And proof has its standards. They cannot take your word for it. They want to see a lease. They might want to see a utility bill. So think of how many members of society cannot fulfill those requirements.
Yes.
We're beginning to hit on some of the reasons why we have unbanked.
The unfortunate thing is that we are out of time. The fortunate thing is that there is so much to discuss, because you've even touched on the human rights aspect this morning.
Indeed,
as well.
Yes.
Which I had not even thought about. When the first thing that came to mind about cashless society, I was not even thinking about human rights, and all that is a part of this conversation. So we actually have to pause there. But because there's a lot more to speak about, this would not be our final conversation on this topic.
I look forward to continuing this with you.
So thank you very much for your time this morning and for your illustrations.
It's been my pleasure. I may even leave you with some oranges.
You have to. I give you 20 minutes.
Until next time.
Until next time. Miss Camille Pagey, Information Technology Consultant, joining me this morning. So again, it goes back to the question of possibility or inevitability. And in exploring such a topic, you realize how many factors one has to consider before we're able to answer such a question. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shah. As always, it's been a pleasure. Wishing you a grand day ahead, maybe a productive one, a safe one. It is wet, it is windy, it is a bit cold outside. So, in all your travels, walk with an umbrella, probably something a bit warm. But until tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., keep well.
WESN.
I'm Andre L. Batiste, and you're watching WESN, the Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Alan's Funeral Home, Tunapuna. Relax. We know the loss of a loved one can be challenging, but we've got your back for all your funeral needs, from documents to the service and/or burial. Let Alan's Funeral Home take care of you and your loved ones. We are located on the Eastern Main Road in Tunapuna. Call us today at 663-1829 or visit allansfuneralhome.com. Alan's Funeral Home. Let us take care of business. Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.